Well, today we're going to talk about managing the holidays. And since Thanksgiving's just around the corner, I'm going to use Thanksgiving as an example. But when you think about this time of year, Thanksgiving leading into the Christmas, Hanukkah, New Year's, what typically happens with your weight? Do you guys know? Do you monitor it? Well, studies show people generally from November to January gain on an average of 8 to 12 pounds, okay, in 2 months. So we really want to be proactive, which that's part of why they're doing this here, is to get a weigh-in, attend some informative classes, just to bring that awareness, okay? All right, so when you think about the holidays, what are the main triggers for you? Is it traditional things that you do with family or friends? Is it the environment of a certain house or location of a get-together? But what type of things are the triggers that set you off for overeating, less exercising, things that lead to the weight gain? And then what you want to do is have a plan. Come up with a plan, strategize for the situations that are your triggers. That's okay. So often what people will do, a strategy versus planning, a strategy would be skip breakfast to save the calories for later, or skip lunch, or eat very light to save calories for the big get-together or social event in the evening. The problem with that is you show up starving. And when we show up at a restaurant starving, there tends to be chips, bread out, or a get-together at someone's house. There's appetizers. The appetizers tend to be higher calorie, fried, heavier foods. So we want to make sure, yes, we're eating light in terms of lots of fruits and vegetables, getting in our protein, but making healthy choices throughout the day, and even have a snack right before you go so you don't show up hungry. Okay? Because our guard is down when we reach that point of starving. When we're starving, we just want to grab whatever is quickest, easiest. We don't think, it takes a while for our stomach to send signals that it's full. And by the time that happens, we've consumed a lot of convenient foods. Okay, so we want to avoid the skipping before a big event or saving calories that way. So when we think about the Thanksgiving menu, here's an example of what that one meal might look like, okay? 8 ounces of some white meat, some dark meat. 4 ounces is roughly the size of the palm of your hand. So often at Thanksgiving we might double up 8 ounces. A cup of mashed potatoes. So 1 cup is about the size of your fist. If you have really big fists, a little smaller. But about the size of a tennis ball or your fist. So 1 cup of stuffing, 3 to 4 ladles of gravy, half a cup of green bean casserole, half a cup of cranberry sauce, 3/4 a cup of candied sweet potatoes. And how many of you think all of those are a tennis ball or smaller? That's being pretty restrained, showing restraint, I think. When we're scooping mashed potatoes, stuffing, sweet potatoes, green bean casserole, it's often more than a cup of each, or half a cup. 1 roll with butter, 1 piece of pumpkin pie, 1 cup of coffee with cream and sugar, 1 glass of wine or cider. How many calories do you think that meal would be? So I hear a lot, 37, pointing down to the bottom, yes. Okay, so we're looking at 1 meal, 1 plate. And that's not even going crazy. It's not saying 2 cups of mashed potatoes, 2 rolls. pumpkin pie and pecan pie, or pumpkin and apple, no ice cream, and we're already at almost 4,000 in calories. And the only thing we've had to drink is 1 cup of coffee, 1 wine, or 1 cider. And often we show up to something early. So there's a drink, there's appetizers, there's this meal at almost 4,000 calories, and then what happens shortly after? The dessert, and then after that, often there's the leftovers. Or make a quick little turkey sandwich, a little something. I'm not that hungry, but that's still, half a turkey sandwich with a little scoop of a leftover something is another regular meal. So it adds up to quite a bit in that day. Okay? So what does 3,000 calories look like? For 3,000 calories, that could be 5 Big Macs, 12 brownies, 25 baked potatoes, 30 slices of bread, 50 cups of cantaloupe or fruit, tons of vegetables or salad. We don't realize how many calories. So often traditional foods, holiday foods, it tends to be very high calorie. A lot of cream, a lot of butter. We're often going to the store for ingredients that we don't keep in the house regularly. And we think, it's just one meal. But that one meal can be a lot. And then often it triggers into the weekend. There's leftovers, we keep having the meal, or companies in town, so we're taking people out, we're entertaining. And in those 2, 3, 4 days, we can do a lot of damage in terms of calories consumed, less exercise because we've been thrown out of our normal routine and schedule, and it can be pretty detrimental to our weight. So some people think, I'll just do extra PA, or I went for a walk this morning, but what would it really take to burn off that one meal? So we want to stay active. Our physical activity is important, but we can't make up for it with physical activity. We're not going to do 10 hours of walking to make up for that one meal. So we want to be physically active, but we also want to change what that meal looks like a little bit. Okay, that way's not going to work. So with the holidays in general, we know there's going to be some overeating days. It's just going to happen. There's going to be days that are higher calories than what you usually consume to either maintain your healthy weight or to be slowly losing weight. What we need to plan for is we need some under-eating days, some lower calorie days. We need some days that we don't have much going on that we can bring to work, pack, low calorie, really snack on fruits, vegetables, lean protein, whole grains, watch our portions, and plan for those days. The overeating days tend to happen regardless. Social events, get-togethers, birthdays, but we need to plan for some days where we really cut back on our calories to allow for that. And when in doubt, veggies. If we're hungry, vegetables. Thanksgiving is one where often it's the green bean casserole or cream corn. Traditional dishes, there's not a lot of fresh fruit or fresh vegetables. Okay, so it's looking at how can you incorporate some healthy meals into the celebration as well. Okay, so how many of you guys have seen this? The Choose My Plate. Do you guys try and use that as a guideline? It helps to really think of half your plate fruits and vegetables. So even if you're at a party that's a buffet for the holidays or appetizers laid out, you always want to avoid, I'll nibble on this, placing things on a napkin and kind of grazing. You lose track of what you've consumed, how many calories. So you want to get a plate And even when you put things on the plate, try and make sure half of it is fruits and veggies. That leaves less room for the higher calorie appetizers. So same with a holiday meal. We still want half our plate to be fresh fruits and vegetables, steamed, lower calorie, not prepared in a high-fat way. So this is where you can kind of think about, where will I be, what's served, or can I volunteer to bring, roasted green beans or a veggie platter or fruit bowl for the appetizers beforehand. How will I be able to fill my plate half fruits and vegetables? Okay, with then protein, ideally lean, can we take the skin off, and then a grain. But our plate often, this meal for example, if we have stuffing, mashed potato, roll, it's a lot of grain. It's usually all starches, which are most calorically dense, and then the protein. And then we pour the gravy all over, which I know some of you noticed on that 1 calorie. The gravy has a lot of calories. Okay, there's some really good things that you'll find this time of year too. I mean, cranberries, sweet potatoes are packed with fiber, vitamins, minerals. Cranberries have a lot of healthy antioxidants. The turkey is really a lean protein source. Even the dark meat, if you remove the skin, is still fairly lean. Greens, if we prepare them differently, without the added fats. Even pumpkin itself, or a butternut squash that you roast or bake or grill would be a good option. It's just when we take the sweet potatoes and it's butter and marshmallows, we start getting in a little trouble. The other thing is looking at ingredients. What are we putting in as we're making meals? Are we, even if something calls for whole milk or cream, can we substitute a lower fat milk? Okay, can we use non-fat or low-fat yogurt, evaporated milk, low-fat sour cream, a light dressing? For desserts, can we use Cool Whip or use a fat-free or sugar-free pudding mix for part of the meal? Sugar substitutes work well that you can bake with and cut the calories down quite a bit. Do any of you guys use any substitutions in general? Day to day? Some? So let's look at how can we trim, let's say, even 1,000 calories from that meal. Okay? We could cut down to 3 ounces of turkey meat. Okay, so 3 ounces is that deck of cards, pretty close to the palm of your hand, versus what initially was on there was the 8 ounces. Okay, we'd save over 200 calories if we did that and took the skin off. If we did a baked sweet potato versus the butter and the marshmallows on the sweet potato, a baked sweet potato with cinnamon, we can keep the calories very low and still have that taste and enjoy it. And that would cut down. And again, this is for the portions from the front initial slide. Consider doing, taking green beans, a little garlic, pepper, salt, roasting, steaming, baking, versus adding the mushroom soup casserole with the deep fried onions on top would cut back as well. And you'd save 135 calories just for that half a cup portion. So if we're having more, we would save even more calories by the switch. Mashed potatoes, sometimes they just, when you go to get some, they all stick together and so much comes out. And then once it's on our plate, we feel like we have to eat it. But can we make a conscious effort or put a smaller spoon and just take half the amount? With the dessert, can we switch from a regular ice cream to a low fat, or do half a cup versus a whole cup, or some people have done the pie without the crust, or you could use Cool Whip instead of the ice cream for even less. This was just switching to a low-fat ice cream. Say it would save 160 calories. Okay, so that's a way, those all add up together to saving 1,000 calories. And we even look at or touch the gravy, some other things we could have done differently to trim back. So there's definitely ways we can trim back and still enjoy the foods we like. Here's an example of the Thanksgiving cook, okay? What happens when we're in the kitchen all day preparing this meal? Okay, right, tasting, 8 a.m., you're doing a cake, you lick the spatula, okay? There's a little bit. We're gonna lick the spatula, 75 calories. We're browning bacon for our gratin potatoes. You're working hard, you deserve one slice. Right, we're sweating in the kitchen, 42 calories. Right, you've skipped breakfast to save calories, so you say, I should have this slice. Toast breadcrumbs for stuffing. Need to keep that energy up, so you take the opportunity to carb load. 4 little breadcrumbs, 15 calories. Whip heavy cream for pumpkin pie. Is it sweet enough? Let's taste it. 26 calories. Maybe a shot of cranberry would liven up the cream. Better have a sip. So a half an ounce, 38 calories. We're going to add cranberries to the stuffing. We grab a few. Okay, set out the cheese plate for early arrivals. At Munch, as a distant cousin, provides updates on impossibly perfect children. Try not to roll your eyes. So the 57 calories is for one of those chunks, because the whole thing would be an ounce at roughly 100 calories. Return to kitchen. Down dregs a first glass of wine. Immediately pour another. Sometimes it gets stressful, those get-togethers, too. The warm crunch of perfectly toasted pecans is impossible to resist 5 times. Pull beautiful bird from the oven. Before tenting with foil and letting the meat rest, pry off juicy chunk of thigh meat, with skin, of course. Right? No one's looking. We've got to take a little piece. While making the green beans, realize you're probably short on the day's vegetable servings. Have a few. As you prep the topping for the sweet potato casserole, 6 mini marshmallows accidentally fall on the floor. We eat those. The roasted Brussels sprouts are done. Still short on veggies. We try to. Drop heated rolls into the bread basket. One didn't turn out pretty. What do we do with it? Okay, one last swig from the wine glass. Everything's ready. Now onto the meal. A taste here, a bite there, a sip to smooth the way. The Thanksgiving journey from kitchen to table added up to almost 800 calories. And do we count those things? When we lick the spatula, when we eat the, little piece that fell off the, what's that?
They don't have calories officially.
Right. Somewhere.
Yeah.
We need that research study, huh? So there's those extras too. It's not a typical day, okay? And we have extra things in the house, company, stress. We haven't eaten much because we've been in the kitchen all day, so we're hungry. So when the one roll doesn't look good, something falls off the plate, we're grabbing that, trying to keep the energy up to keep prepping for the get-together. But it does add up. And then we go to the meal. And what was our meal was 3,000 calories. 37. Okay? How many of you guys find yourself in negotiation? I can have this piece of pumpkin pie, I just won't eat for the next 8 weeks. Or I'll go for a walk, I'll make up for this weekend. It adds up quick. So we really have to look at, if we want to taste something versus feeling like, oh, I want to try this pie, this pie, this pie, or I'll have one now, one later, leftovers, it all adds up. For that bite of pumpkin pie, on average, a 200-pound person would need to walk the length of the football field 7 times to burn that 40 calories. Okay, so we need to stay active, but we can't rely on our physical activity alone to make up for the extra calories of this holiday season. Okay? So environmental control is looking at the situations you put yourself in, what you have on hand, and so you can look at what will you add, what will you take out, what will you avoid. Things you might add could be, adding physical activity that day, bringing something healthy to the get-together, bringing the veggie platter, the fruit platter. Things you might take away is getting the leftovers out of the house versus having the leftovers there for 2-3 days. Or do we take leftovers home? Can we say, no, give that to someone else, or you have lunch tomorrow? So what is it that we might need to add or remove or stay away from to, manage our weight successfully over the holidays? Now, some people kind of look at, there's 6 get-togethers from Friday night to Sunday. Which ones do I intend to eat at? Which ones do I show up later? Oh, I already ate ahead of time. What's your strategy going to be for getting through the holidays? Because if we go into it with no plan, we saw it adds up really quick. So on a scale of 1 to 10, asking yourself how confident are that you can manage even now through the end of November. Often we have a few extra days off work, multiple get-togethers, even just through November. We're almost to the end of November. How's your weight been so far? And what do we need to do to end November on a good note and go into December feeling like you can keep this up, manage your weight through the holidays, and start the new year down? Versus the average person who starts the new year up around 10 pounds. As we know, every year it gets harder to lose the weight too. Okay. So we want to enjoy the holidays. We want to focus on not just the food alone, but focus on the social atmosphere, the seeing friends and family. Can you ask someone to go for a walk with you, volunteer to take the kids outside and start a soccer game? Keep busy versus do we position ourselves right where the food is laid out? If we socialize where the food is laid out for 2 hours, 4 hours, our caloric intake for that time period is gonna be higher. It's gonna be higher. So, put on a plate what you want, visualize it, and then remove yourself from the food. Socialize somewhere else, move away from the food. If you're hosting, you can put the leftovers away versus, people kind of graze all day long. Okay. How confident are you guys feeling for the rest of the month? Can you do it? Whether it's making some substitutions with ingredients for lower calorie substitutes, switching how we prepare maybe some of the vegetables, keeping our physical activity up, and then maybe looking at just really watching the portions what we eat, by putting it on a plate and trying to visualize that, my plate, of am I still doing half my plate fruits and vegetables? And then that fist of a starch, palm of your hand of a protein, and not going too overboard. And not show up starving. Okay? Any questions?